What is happening, guys, and welcome back to the channel. God, it's been a minute since I've been around. Between guiding and editing all this stuff, it really does take a lot of time, so I apologize for that we haven't been updating you guys on what's been going on. Guys, the bite has been phenomenal on the pond, especially for post-spawn. The weather has definitely been up and down, which is obviously a problem. As you guys can see by the intro, I've had a lot of stuff break down and unfold over the past few days in this last week. And so it really is kind of a stressful time. Then to put on top of it, trying to keep up on all the content stuff, it just really does, consume a lot of your time, a lot more than what I would have guessed early on when I first started doing this. But we're trying to make up for it and we're gonna get after it. So number one, the bite's been phenomenal so far this June. Fish have been post-spawn for a minute now. I've started to see them slide off their spawning grounds and really start to utilize those shallow flats when the water gets calm. And when it does start to blow, you know, I'm finding fish sliding off of that shallow stuff and getting down into like some of those deeper edges into that 10 to 14 foot range, which seems to be the case. You know, you really got to fish the conditions. You really have to put your nose down sometimes. And remember that it's post-spawn right now, so you're not gonna pull up on one spot and catch 40 fish. It just doesn't work that way. You're gonna have to work for them a little bit. That means moving some water, moving around a little bit. And if you do catch 2, maybe 3 fish out of an area, that's actually pretty good. You need to keep on going and hitting some of your best stuff that you got and rotating through it in order to generate as many bites as you can. That's kind of the program out on the pond. And I'm gonna show you guys some awesome baits that are gonna work pretty good all the way through, I would guess, mid-July to end of July before these fish start migrating into their summer patterns, which is gonna be a lot of deeper, you know, isolated boulder fishing, maybe catching roamers out with that hover rig. You know, there could be a lot of different things going on during that time frame, but until that happens, this is gonna be the deal. We're gonna be targeting these fish in shallower water, at least I am. And for me personally, my favorite scenario for post-spawn is gonna be absolutely flat, calm, slicked off days where there's not a ripple on the water. That's my favorite time to fish these smallmouth when it comes to be post-spawn. We have multiple things going on out there. We got mayfly hatches and we have an algae bloom that's on the horizon. So I was just out the other day, had a guide trip on Friday. The water really relaxed down for us and we were able to put some good fish in the boat. But one thing that I did notice when that wind settles down is that water wants to bloom. I'm seeing some color in the water, which tells me that's right on the horizon. So something to think about when you are going out is how am I gonna combat those two things, mayflies and algae blooms. If you guys watched my video from last year, the tragic, unfortunate truth of the post-spawn blues, you guys definitely check that out. Every year I feel like as an angler and a guide and just a Mille Lacs Lake smallmouth junkie that I'm getting better at managing this time of the year. And part of it too, part of that management is going to boil down to expectations too. That's kind of a part of it. And expectations meaning that I'm not expecting to catch 100 fish off an area. I'm not expecting to catch 25 pounds off of one area. I know in my head that I need to move some water and cover some of the best stuff that I have in order to get more bites. That's kind of my water breakdown scenario. Let's jump into the fun stuff, the baits, right? I haven't done a No More Secrets video for a while. Let's get down to the nitty gritty of it. No More Secrets, volume, whatever. I don't know. We've done a few No More Secret videos. They're my favorite to do because I just give you guys all the juice and the tackle, rods, reels, all that stuff. It all correlates to being out on the water. All right, No More Secrets. June, July, what are we gonna do in this post-spawn funk? How are we gonna catch them through the algae blooms? How are we gonna catch them through the mayfly hatches? And I'm gonna start off right away with the most dominating bait in the last month, and that's gonna be the hair jig. Man, oh man, do I love fishing a hair jig. And if you guys haven't seen a hair jig story, Smallmouth Disneyland, definitely check that video out. It's one of my favorite videos that I've made this year. I had a great time editing that video. Let's get into it. Hair jig, right here. Fluff McGruff. How do we throw this thing? Well, for number one, I like covering shallow flats with it. If you guys haven't got the memo yet, I'm sure I've said it over 1,000 times. I love covering shallow flats with the hair jig. In a way, it's like finesse power fishing because you can cover a lot of water, it's a moving bait, and you can get on the trolling motor and move a little bit. One thing that my clients learned on Friday was you really got to slow roll this thing. You got to get this thing going as slow as you possibly can, especially during the hatches. It's just really key. Now, why do I say that? Because for me, during these mayfly hatches, I am actually trying to mimic a dying mayfly, right? And if you watch what those dying mayflies look like when they start to come, you'll see them just scattered all over the surface. And when you watch when they start to sink, they are not moving 100 miles per hour. They kind of just sink and float out there. And that is really what you're trying to imitate. That's why I think it's really important you get down in size. So at the beginning, you know, we were throwing an 1/8 ounce at the beginning of this, and now I've really tried to scale down into that 3/32 ounce because it's just a little bit lighter and it's a bait that you can move just a little bit slower and fish it shallower. I've been finding a lot of fish in between 6 and 12 feet. That's been my most productive areas to fish. I found them deeper and I found them even a little shallower than that, but the best bite has been in between that 6 to like 10, 12 feet range. I'm running this on a hair jig rod. This is an 8-foot rod and it's a medium. Toxic Elite came out with an 8-foot medium light hair jig rod that I think is way better suited for this technique. Now, I like running 8-pound braid to 8-pound test leader. Now, I know guys that are doing 6-pound braid to an 8-pound test leader, 6-pound braid to a 6-pound test leader, which is totally fine. I'm assuming those guys are running that 3/32 hair jig size. Two things that I'm really liking about this hair jig combo. One, the length of the rod, it's 8 feet. Two, the 4000 series spool. The 4000 series spool, it just gives you greater casting distance, and with hair jigs, casting distance is everything. Being able to get this bait away from the boat as far as you can. Now, like I just said, I think a medium light is the perfect rod for this. And part of the reason why is look at how small that Gamakatsu hook is. Now I'm running the Outcast Tackle, Fight or Fly. In my opinion, best hair jig on the market, one of the best hair jigs on the market. They're always consistent. They have a great hook in them. You know, that's key in hair jigs to me, is how quality is the hair jig gonna be, how quality is the hook gonna be, how quality is the fur that they use, and how quality of the tie is gonna be. So Outcast Tackle, Fight or Fly hair jig, marabou hair jig, definitely by far bait of the month out on Mille Lacs Lake. Here's a good question that I've never been asked is, how do you know when the fish really come off the hair jig? And honestly, this can vary day to day. It really varies on conditions, and I watched this happen out on Mille Lacs. And one thing to keep in mind about Mille Lacs is very regional. The lake is super big. You can have different conditions on, you can have specific conditions on the east side that are nothing like the conditions on the west side, and vice versa from north and south. The area of the lake that I was on the other day when I was with my guide clients, it really didn't have a lot of bug activity. There was like no bugs on the surface, and when I look at the fish on live scope, they weren't really positioned in the middle of the water column. They were positioned more on the bottom of it. When it comes to that, that's when I really like to lean hard on the swim bait, especially this time of year. Post spawn, I really think that this swim bait can do some damage, and it's a great bait for clients to throw. And for me, one of the reasons why it turned into one of my go-tos this post spawn is just for the fact that I can cover water with it. I can cast it out and it's a retrieving bait. And so I can cover a little bit of water with it while throwing it, and it's almost like quote unquote finesse power fishing in a way. Kind of much like the hair jig, it just has that ability to where you can move water and cover it while still being able to be finessey enough for those bass to bite. Now, when I'm running, usually guys, I'll show you guys what I'm usually running. I'm sure you guys see this. You've seen it before, obviously, but I'm running this Outcast Tackle Goldeneye for my swim bait head. In this case, lately, I've been fishing them just a little bit shallower, and a buddy of mine turned me onto these. This is the Owner Roundhead jig. That's a Mega Bass Spark Shad on it. It's basically, you know, I think this is a 3/32, and then an 1/8 ounce jig is what I like to use. It comes through the rocks really, really good. And then obviously, I've talked about it before, Somatis baits, we are coming out with a finesse swim bait. It's on the horizon, like it's coming real soon. We are working out all the fine details with it just to make sure that it's like the perfect finesse swim bait. We want it to be in the top tier with all the other go-to swim baits on the market. We feel that we can be that, and it kills me to not be able to show you guys. We are running this rig on a medium 7'3" rod, Daiwa Tatula 3000 with 10-pound braid to a 10-pound leader. Nothing too crazy. I'd probably run just a little bit softer action of a rod. This rod's pretty sensitive. It's good for bottom contact stuff, but not really good for a sweeping hook set. So I would maybe run something just a little bit like more of a moderate action or more of a parabolic bend, but this seems to get the job done. Now, one thing about post-spawn fish and one thing about these Mille Lacs Lake smallmouth that I come to notice is they do like to feed up a lot more than they like to feed down in that post-spawn time frame, and I really think that has a lot to do with the bug hatches and all that. It's got them looking upwards, it's got them wanting to feed up, especially on those clear, calm, sunny days. Like I said before, that's like my absolute favorite condition to fish post-spawn smallmouth bass. Bass love to feed up during this post-spawn time, especially when it gets calm and clear out. It really makes it to where they're focusing their efforts to go up. You got all those dead bugs sinking into the water that makes them constantly position themselves off bottom, and it's like they're looking up and they're looking to chew. One awesome way to get them to bite, especially if they're in between that mayfly hatch, maybe they're feeding on perch because of the big perch hatches this time of year, it's gonna be a spy bait or a prop bait. The spy bait or prop bait can be really, really effective. Now, if I'm being honest, this was for sure a bait that I hated to throw. I wasn't a big fan of throwing this bait because it just seemed like I dumped a ton of fish, and I think I kind of figured out a really good way to throw this. So first off, I would throw this with a hair jig rod if it was me. You know, anything from 7'6" to 8 feet is gonna be the perfect rod to throw. So the action of the rod combined with the pound test line that you use is gonna be a giant factor to how many fish you hook up on. Now, I've been playing with this a little bit over the years and figured out that yes, that hair jig rod is a freaking awesome way to throw this bait, and here's why. When you guys hook up with these fish with this bait, if you find that you're losing them a lot or if you're breaking your trebles, look at how small those trebles are. Those are clearly finesse treble hooks. I don't know what kind Duo Realis uses. Now, I don't know if they have their own brand or if they own their own, or if they use their own hooks, but that's how small those hooks are. In that case, you definitely need lighter tackle to be able to run this setup and to be able to convert on your hookup. So that's kind of the deal for me. That's what I figured out is, for sure, don't be afraid to tie this on your hair jig rod, on your medium light, or like even on a drop shot rod. You know, a longer rod, drop shot rod with more moderate action is definitely gonna get you higher landing percentages, which is the major downfall of this bait. A lot of times when I catch them on this bait, they only have one hook on it. Like a lot of times. Rarely do I ever see them like gulp the whole thing. I have seen it, but I haven't seen it a ton. Now, hair jig rod combined with 8-pound test to an 8-pound leader is going to be the perfect setup for me to run this spy bait, and I am cranking it in moderately slow, but I am trying to have it swim through the middle of the water column. Fishing it anywhere from 6 to 15 feet is going to be the most effective areas to run this bait. We have the hover minnow. This is a hover rig. I'm throwing it on a 16th ounce head. I got it on a 7'3" rod, fast action, which is really important for this bait. You know, when I first started messing around with this bait, I was hovering deep. So, you know, that 18 to 22 feet range. And what I found out was you do want a stiffer rod for this. For me personally, I want more of a fast action rod, and I want it to be able to react with the hook set. Sometimes there's slack in your line when you set the hook on these.
That's a Demiki'd one. Is that Demiki? Yeah.
Fish, and it really doesn't really favor well with void in the rod, so you do want that quicker tip. And the way that I'm throwing this, this is a 7'3" medium action rod, and I have this on a Daiwa. The older Daiwa exists. It's not the newer one, but I have this on an older Daiwa exists. It's basically a 4000 series spool. I'm running on 10-pound braid with a 10-pound leader. For sure, a great finesse post-spawn bait. I think that this is going to be extremely effective. Like I said, you know, these fish are looking up a lot of times, and those ideal conditions of flat calm, I really think that this hover minnow can really shine in those conditions. And I've definitely caught a few in the last few weeks with this bait, just throwing it out there, not even using it to like interact with the fish with the forward facing sonar. I'll chuck it out there and I'll fish it like a wacky worm almost. So if you are one of those purists that do not use forward facing sonar but want to give this hover minnow a shot, I'm telling you right now, you don't have to have forward-facing sonar to use it. Just fish it like a wacky worm. Little side story, we're on our Monday nighter. One of our key bites came on this bait, and we were fishing largemouth, and I was fishing it just like that. My partner was kind of surprised when I threw it out there, and I wasn't watching forward-facing sonar at all. I actually jumped in the back of the boat and just heaved it out there and just did countdowns with it and caught a keeper bass with it. So definitely a good option, even if you don't have the forward-facing sonar. All right, my absolute favorite way to catch these bass is going to be with the topwater. This is like by far one of my favorite times of year, is going to be the post-spawn topwater bite. The other day when I was out, it was a magical day with the topwater. We caught quite a few fish on them. My clients got to land a few. Then I went, dropped them off at the landing. I came back out because the conditions were so ideal for it, and I caught probably 8 or 9 that were over 3-4 pounds, and it was on this baby right here. We are gonna have a topwater video coming out very soon that's gonna show you guys, like, we're gonna do a deep dive on topwater fishing, but for now, let's just do a base summary of it. So this is an Arc Z-Pop. I can tell you guys what, I am super impressed with this thing. The action of it, the design of it is totally badass. So let's just get an in-depth look quick. As you guys can see, I scribbled the belly a little bit of orange, which is kind of my deal out on Mille Lacs. I really think that they gravitate towards that orange color, especially when you're fishing topwater. It's just the confidence thing for me, so I keep a thing of markers on the boat in case I get a topwater that I want to doodle on and make hot orange on the bottom of it. But these Arc Z-Pops have such fine detail of them. They kind of remind me of the more expensive brands that you can buy, some of those JDM ones, right? This is definitely a really sweet buy when it comes to poppers. You can get them over at Omnia. I like throwing this stuff on bait casters. When I'm running with clients, sometimes I'll have them throw on spinning rods and stuff, or even I'll throw on a spinning rod if it's a really small popper. I'm gonna throw this on a bait caster. This is a medium 7'3" fast action rod. And then my setup on the reel is gonna be a Daiwa Tatula 100 HSL. So we got the 20-pound braid going to a really small 20-pound monofilament leader. And the reason why I run monofilament instead of fluorocarbon is because fluorocarbon sinks. So as you guys can see, this monofilament is stiffer, obviously, it's 20-pound test, but the braid is super limp. Whenever you get around limp line in a bunch of treble hooks, the line wants to wrap around those treble hooks pretty frequently, especially when you're sitting there giving it action. And monofilament floats, so it keeps the bait above water. Topwater is definitely one of my favorite ways to catch them. Did I mention that yet?
Oh, did you see that? That was badass, boys, on the topwad ski.
If I haven't mentioned it yet, there you go. If you look at this topwater, look at the top of that thing. It's just beat on so bad, and those are bass bites. So yes. Oh, last but not least, a bait that I haven't pulled out yet this season that I'm going to be using probably a lot in the next month is going to be the old Dropshot. This is a VMC Nico hook, which I switch it up. I'll either use a VMC Nico hook or a owner cover shot hook. So I'm switching back and forth between a VMC Nico hook and like a owner cover shot hook. This is Samrardinfishing shot. It's our drop shot bait. It's freaking awesome. Catches them. And then down below, I have a real tungsten 1/8 ounce leader. And during this time of year, like I said before, we're not fishing super deep, so I'm really focusing on downsizing my tackle. And this 1/8 ounce, I might use a 3/16 or a 1/4 at the very heaviest, but I'm probably gonna be leaning more towards the 1/8 ounce and the 3/16 ounce drop shot weight, since I'm gonna be fishing relatively shallow this time of year. And then I have a Daiwa Kage 3000 paired with it, 10-pound test braid to a 10-pound test leader, just like everything else. And I am going back and forth between Daiwa Samurai Fluoro and Seagar and VizX. Those are like my two favorite fluorocarbons right now that I'm messing with. When I start to change, I'll let you guys know. Another thing that I've pretty recently tried is running this Daiwa J-braid for my spinning setups. We'll see how it goes. I'm definitely gonna give you guys an update on my experiences with it. I have been a Power Pro guy through and through for many, many years. I'm still running Power Pro and all my casting stuff, the SSV2, but I thought that I would change it up, man, and I would try this stuff and just see what's up with it. I was really, really impressed with the Daiwa Samurai fluorocarbon, so I have high expectations for this stuff. I think that this stuff feels perfect as far as spinning rod line goes. I think that it's just perfect for it, so we'll see what happens. All right, guys, the bite on Mille Lacs has been freaking fantastic so far. I think that this topwater stuff is gonna get only better as time goes on. We're just gonna keep on catching them out there. We're gonna stay on those schools of fish for you guide clients out there looking to come up to Minnesota and catch big smallmouth. I'm gonna be out there all the time, putting in the work, trying to get you guys on those fish. All the products in this video can be found in the link below. Anything purchased through the links is definitely gonna help my channel out, and I appreciate it. A free, easy way that you can help me out is just by subscribing to the video and liking it, maybe throwing a comment down there about what you guys thought about the video. Maybe the video sucked. Tell me about it. Tell me what sucked about it. Maybe you really liked the video. Tell me about it. Tell me why you liked the video, or maybe even how you found me and why you're even watching our YouTube channel. I appreciate it though. Regardless, for whatever the reason may be, I appreciate it. I appreciate you guys viewing this stuff. It really keeps it going. If you guys are looking to book a guide trip, send me a private message on either Facebook or Instagram and we'll get you guys taken care of. Until then, guys, you know what it is. Guess where you'll see me? Out on the water.